The term supercar usually refers to vehicles that are super fast, sexy, sleek, exotic looking, and of course expensive. Well, this is the 2017 Audi R8 V10 Plus, and it ticks all the above boxes. Now the problem with a car like this though, usually there's not a lot of places to really let it stretch its legs without getting it impounded or getting thrown in jail. So most people that buy cars like this end up driving them for more everyday activities. So today we're going to find out how this R8 handles day-to-day driving. It doesn't matter what angle you look at this R8, it just screams exotic supercar. Starting from the back, you have carbon fiber wing, functional of course. When you're doing like 200-300 kilometers an hour. You can see through the window this beautiful V10 engine. The V10 Plus also comes standard with 20-inch rims. These are gorgeous, as well as ceramic brakes. Carbon fiber all around, the rear valence, the side blades, you name it, even the mirrors. Up front, you have the signature Audi grille, and then you have LED lights. But in the front, you also have laser high beams. What are they? It's an actual laser, it's projected, and what it gives you? A beam that is 3 times brighter than LED. But the advantage of lasers is you can direct them, so you won't blind anyone. The inside of the R8 is what you would absolutely expect from Audi, especially on their flagship sports coupe. It's just gorgeous. You got a carbon fiber everywhere, but the carbon fiber, it just looks really rich and expensive, this carbon fiber, and it wraps right around the cockpit. When I say cockpit, you really feel like you're in a cockpit. First of all, there's something missing of what you're normally used to on cars nowadays. There is no screen in the middle. There's nothing here. Everything is driver-centric, just wrapping around the driver. So instead of a screen, you have a virtual cockpit in the center, and I really do like this. Now, you don't have to buy an R8 to get this. You can even get it down to their A4 models with a virtual cockpit. You can configure it how you want. If you want to do some performance driving, you just hit the view and you can make it so the only thing dominant is just that tachometer, and you have a speedometer in the middle. You can make the entire screen your Navi screen. Maybe you're going touring or you're just driving in the city and you have a commanding view. And I actually like it right in front of you opposed to being on the right side. Even the backup camera shows up in the middle console there. On the steering wheel, you have satellite controls. This comes standard, by the way, on the V10 Plus. On the non-Plus model, you can order it in the Le Mans package. So kind of redundant controls with the center here. It's very intuitive, very easy to use. It only took me seriously probably about an hour in the car before I was actually just using these controls only and kind of ignoring anything here. The seats, bucket seats on this V10 Plus with electric height adjustment, and that's all other than your back and forth adjustments. If you want a little bit more comfort or more adjustment, you can opt for the sport seats, which are power adjustable 18 different ways. This car is also equipped with the Bang & Olufsen stereo system. It's an option for $2,300. If you're a music fan and you like to listen to your music kind of fairly loud, I'd get it. Otherwise, I'd probably stick to the stock system. Of course, when you buy a car, it's not just all about looks. So this R8 has a lot more going for it than its great looks. It has racing DNA. This car shares 50% of its parts with the racing version R8. So that's pretty impressive. Under the hood or engine compartment is a 5.2 liter V10 engine putting out 540 horsepower. Or if you get the V10 Plus, which this one is, you get 610 horsepower. Okay, now we're in the R8. It is very low to get in, by the way, just to let you know, but I can live with it. Big, huge red button on the steering wheel. Start, engine, stop. Give that a push. Ooh. She comes to life. All right, so we're just gonna put it into drive right now and just head out on the road and get a feel of what this R8 has to offer. So not only was it hard to, or kind of low to get in, you really ride low. Compared to other cars, you feel like you're driving a little go-kart. You're just basically coming up to their window ledge. But I think that's probably par for the course for most supercars. So you got that engine right behind you. Now we're in comfort mode now, so just to let you know, there are drive modes, and we're in comfort mode. So what comfort mode does, it kind of retards the engine for you a little bit. It's not as racy, and the steering is a little bit easier as well. The transmission is very, very mild as well. This one has the magnetic suspension, so it can monitor the roads and stiffen or soften upon your needs. So in comfort, that's what you're gonna get. Now, if we press drive select, we can go into automatic, we can go to dynamic, which is gonna give you kind of like the most fun if you wanna really ring out the most performance, or you can go into individual where you can set what you want. Maybe I want the exhaust to be quiet, but I want the steering to be a little bit harder, and the transmission in sport, things like that. So let's go into dynamic. Now, as soon as I went to dynamic, you might hear there's a difference in the exhaust. So the exhaust note changes when you go dynamic. Now, if you're in comfort mode, you can still do the same thing with this button on the steering wheel with the exhaust. You press that, and it can baffle or make the sound amplified. Right now, it's off again. I'm gonna turn it on, and now we have that sport. Now that we're in dynamic, the transmission is also going to hold those gears a lot longer, but also on downshift, it's going to be very, very reactive when we slow down, and it's going to gear down appropriately. Oh, that does sound good though. It's got that little burble when you back off the throttle too. Now, what's 610 horsepower if you can't put the power down? This does make a pretty good argument for making this an everyday vehicle. This is all-wheel drive. This has the latest generation Audi Quattro all-wheel drive, so that can send 100% of the power from the rear to the front if it needs. So the all-wheel drive system, lots of traction. Yeah, I wouldn't put winter tires on this and drive this in the snow, but technically you could. The Quattro all-wheel drive in this R8 is so precise and amazing, given that I drove it quite a bit in the rain and the wet. Even with semi-hard acceleration, I never detected any slip in the front or the rear whatsoever. It's like the all-wheel drive is predicting the slippage and then applying the power to the corresponding wheels instead of waiting for them to slip before transferring power. Oh yeah. That sounds so good. Now, of course, if you want to shift your gears manually, you do have paddle shifters behind the steering wheel, or you can use the gear selector and do that as well. Now, if you're in comfort mode, you can just flick it back and put that transmission to sport, and you flick it back in, it goes in normal. Under dynamic mode, it's always in sport. I do like that feature though when you're driving. Let's put it back into comfort mode. Okay, now it's even quieter. You can hear. Now this feels like a real normal driving car in comfort mode. But, so we're driving right now, we're in regular drive. This, by the way, this is a twin clutch setup, this transmission. The 7-speed, very, very responsive and intuitive. We'll see that in a sec when we do the gear downs. Now right now I'm gonna go into sport mode with the transmission. And now it's a lot more responsive, and that's really nice. Under comfort mode, if I feel like I need to have a little bit more performance or just hold those gears a little longer, I just pull back on that lever. When I'm done, I just hit that back, and we're back into regular transmission comfort mode again. So what good is 610 horsepower if you can't stop the vehicle? These ceramic brakes, they are so grippy. If you're not used to them, you really need to take a little time, or else you're gonna be braking way too early. They really grab, and they're very, very powerful. And it gives you so much confidence when you're driving something this capable and fast, because this will get up to speed so quick. 0 to 60 miles per hour on this, 3.3 seconds. And the 413 foot-pounds of torque, it doesn't seem like that much, especially this is kind of a smaller displacement engine for a V10, but it's a very linear power though. This is about the closest thing I've driven to having the power so linear, almost like when I drove the Tesla Model S. And I just said, you know, it feels very digital. And same as this. When you want power, you just push it, you barely press the pedal, and it just goes, and it's so predictable, the power. The R8 uses a multi-material frame or chassis, and that consists of aluminum casting, and carbon fiber reinforced composites. So you put those all together, and it gives you an extremely rigid and really firm platform for that suspension to work with. And it's also super lightweight. The entire chassis and frame, it's only 200 kilos for this car. That's pretty amazing. So talk about suspension. If you were driving this on an everyday usage, you'd probably leave it in comfort for most of the time, because on everyday roads, we're on some back roads right now, and you get a lot of, they're not quite potholes, but where they've done construction across the streets, and it can be pretty jarring. If you're in that dynamic mode, it would be really, really uncomfortable to ride in for sure. But comfort mode, on the freeway, this car is surprisingly livable for an everyday commute. It's hard to describe the feeling driving a vehicle like this. It's a supercar, really. As a kid, I would never have dreamt that I would be able to actually drive a car like this, and I'm in it. I don't know if words can actually explain or portray how I'm really feeling right now, because it's tough. Maybe you know, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and you can tell from the smile on my face what it's like. So I'll try anyways. It's not just about the performance. Okay, performance has a lot to do with it, a ton, but it's about, like, even driving it slow is a lot of enjoyment. 0 to 60, not even miles an hour, 0 to 60 kilometers an hour, and then coming back down, slowing down. It's so fun because you're driving this machine that is so highly fine-tuned and so precise, and you can feel it. You know that it is. It's not that I'm just telling you or a brochure's telling you. You can feel it. Seriously, you can feel everything about it. You are part of the experience of what this car is doing. And of course, speed would be fun, but it isn't necessary. Just there's so many sensations driving this. Mainly, for sure, the sound, that burble that the exhaust makes, the suspension, it's so tight, it's so responsive, and the steering. This, by the way, has dynamic steering, which makes it even more responsive at all speeds. But we're on a bumpy road right now, but if you're ever having a real bad day, go find yourself an Audi R8 V10, and that frown will turn the other way around. I guarantee it. So the next time I see a car like this on the road, I'm gonna feel like I have at least a little bit closer of a connection to that person behind the wheel. I have an idea of what it feels like driving such a precise machine, and the pride of probably owning one. So would I drive a car like this every day? Probably not. But I would drive it every second day.